Good morning. Let me step a little bit out of the sun here so you can kind of see me. Well, it's Thursday morning. Welcome to Women of War. And it's nice and sunny here in California. I wanted to pop on really quick because yesterday, as I was sitting outside, I saw this, I don't know if it's what it's really called, beetle bug or whatever, but it was this tiny little bug and it was crawling in Hawaii. My brother used to always catch these little things because when you touch them, they roll up into this tiny little ball. And so I remember as a kid, we used to call them roly-poly-olies. And my brother, who is deaf, I think that fascinated him, the fact that he could touch them and they would roll up into balls. And he would stick them all in a box with dirt and, kept touching them so that they would roll up. And anyway, I saw that little thing crawling, and I haven't seen one since I was a kid. So I put this tiny, about this big, maybe 2 inches long, little twig that I found on the ground. I picked it up and I put it kind of in its path, and it crawled up on it. And so I was holding it, and it crawled from one end, and then I, held the other end, and it would turn around and it would crawl to the other end, and then I'd hold the other end. And that little bug, I swear, went back and forth like 10 times. And it would go under the little twig and hold on and crawl and on top, but it just kept going back and forth. It didn't even try to jump off or fall off. It just kept going back and forth. And I finally, at the tip of one side of that twig, I put my finger there, barely touching it. But when it came, with its little legs, I guess, it touched my finger and it crawled up on my finger. And when it crawled up on my finger, it started crawling on my hand and just, moving around. And then I touched it with my other hand and rolled up into the ball. And then it started crawling again. I put the twig back in the palm of my hand, and it crawled back up on that twig and started going back and forth again. And I put it on a one of the leaves on the rose bush. I said all that to say this. Sometimes in life, it's like we're going back and forth on that same path, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Just like that little bug was going back and forth on the twig I was holding. But as soon as I put my finger close enough to it, it crawled up on it. And God does that. He sticks his hand out, but we have to grab it. We have to reach out and grab his hand so he can lead us in the right direction. Don't be like that little bug and let God start leading you. And then you turn around and you go back on that same twig and start doing the same path. It leads to nowhere. And that's what I was, I was watching that little bug. I was thinking, you're not going anywhere, just back and forth on this twig. You're not going anywhere. And God has plans for each one of our lives, and he wants to take us places, and he wants to do things with us, and he wants to tell us great and mighty things. So step off the twig when God sticks his hand out, because it's always there. He never retreats, takes his hand away, runs away, goes the other way. We're the ones who leaves. He's always there. So take his hand. I encourage you today, take his hand. Trust his leading. Walk where he's walking. Go where he's going, because he will never leave you or forsake you. He will never lead you in the wrong direction. And it may not seem like it's the right direction. Sometimes God's direction is hard. It's not always easy. And so trust him in the fact that He knows what's best for you. He knows all things from past, present, and future. So He already knows what's to come, which means He won't mislead you. Amen. So that's all I had to say today. Thank you for popping in. If you're watching the replay later, I pray that God's blessings be upon your life. And I will talk to you all again. Again, thanks for joining Women of War. Blessings. Aloha.